Hello, everybody. Adam Parks here with another episode of the AI Hub. And this is one of my favorite things to talk about artificial intelligence as it relates to the debt collection industry. And when we first started the AI Hub series to kick it off, Chris from Latitude and I did a live webinar episode talking about the 6 use cases of artificial intelligence for the debt collection industry. And that was about 2 years ago. I want to say that was December, about 2 years ago now. And
Mhm.
I learned a lot from that discussion when we started thinking our way through what are the actual use cases, because debt collection and businesses in general all have different use cases. We could talk about accounting and HR and all of these things that apply to everybody. But for today's conversation, I really wanted to hone in on talking about those 6 use cases that are directly related to the debt collection industry. And no one better to have that discussion with than Chris. So, Chris, thank you so much for coming on, sharing your insights with me today. I'm excited that we get to continue this conversation.
Thank you for having me, and thank you for the kind words. I appreciate it.
Well, Chris, I know that you've gone through some transitions recently as an organization, and for me, I think Latitude has been the perfect partner for this particular series because you, to me, are the AI hub, right? You're the spoke, you're the center of the wheel, and the spokes of all the different AI use cases can plug into your platform. But could you tell, for anyone who has not seen previous episodes with you before, could we start by you telling a little bit about yourself and how you got to the seat that you're in today?
Yeah, sure thing. I've been working with the Latitude product since 2018. I go back in this industry back to the early aughts. I worked for a company called Soundbite Communications, an outbound dialer, SMS, and email platform. And then when Genesis acquired Soundbite, I was asked to look after the Latitude line of business, which was also owned by Genesis at the time back in 2018. For those of there may be some people who are not aware, Genesis decided to sell that line of business to TEC Services Group. So it just came on board to TEC Services Group about exactly 2 months ago, and thrilled. It's going great. And so we're in the process of transitioning the Latitude line of business, figuring out our investment strategy going forward. Still a lot of activity, in that arena, lots of interests on buying Latitude. So as new customers are coming on board. So it's just fascinating, fun, and exciting, and just everything's moving super fast.
Well, very exciting. And it's not like TEC coming in and starting to work with Latitude in a new way was that different because you had such a
No.
deep partnership between the organizations leading up to this transition.
Yes. For those people who are not aware, TEC was our North American reseller partner, exclusive. Um, so from a day-to-day operational aspect, not a huge change for me. I just spend more time with the guys at TEC, which has been great.
So, for anyone who is not that familiar with Latitude Software, which I would be pretty surprised because this platform has been around longer than I have in the industry, take just a minute here and see a word from our sponsor, Latitude Software.
Transform your collections process with Latitude Software, a powerful browser-based solution designed to manage debt collection and be the answer to all of your accounts receivables challenges. Latitude Software simplifies operations with features like workflow process automation, customizable agent tools, and seamless integrations for AI, data scoring, written and voice communications, compliance, and negotiations. Plus, it does all of the things you expect from your debt collection software. Whether you're a creditor, debt buyer, or third-party agency, Latitude helps boost recovery rates and streamline operations. Discover smarter collections today with Latitude Software.
All right. So now that we're back, the first thing that I wanted to talk about, Chris, was I thought that we should frame the conversation around the 6 use cases, and then we can go through. I'd like to talk a little about how different types of companies, debt buyers, agencies, law firms, creditors are leveraging these tools specific to the use cases of their business model. And then we can talk a little bit more about each one of the use cases. But first things first, right? The 6 use cases, the way that I see them, and I've had this argument both on stage throughout the years now and also on a variety of podcasts and conversations, but I look at it as these 6: quality and compliance monitoring, chat and written communication, scoring and treatment strategy optimization,
Hmm.
voice AI and real time agent support, negotiation support and offer modeling. So that whole negotiation piece and understanding that from a large data set. And then operational analytics and risk forecasting, which I think each one of these kind of fits into different boats. But any
Hmm.
piece of technology that anyone has showed me across the entire debt collection industry, I can put it into one of these six buckets fairly comfortably. I haven't seen, I
Yeah.
mean, there's some organizations that do many, but have you seen anything that like really falls outside of those six?
No, outside, specific to the collections industry, no. Are they using other AI tools to help the back office of the business, stuff that every business might be using? That's definitely happening as well. But for the collections industry, I think those six buckets certainly cover what is being used and being purchased today.
Absolutely. And even looking at everything that I saw, I mean, there was a ton of AI vendors at the Debt Connection Symposium. There was a lot of AI vendors that were at the ACA annual conference. I heard, although I wasn't there last year, a lot at the RMAI conference. And just looking at the sponsor list for 2026 event, I can see that there's quite a few more that are going to start coming to the forefront. It feels like a lot of the new progress has been directly related to voice AI. And it makes me a little bit nervous because I feel like voice AI is one of the more, I could see the benefit, obviously, of both managing inbound or even making outbound calls using that technology. But it seems like it comes with the highest risk level. It feels like there's some low hanging fruit here in terms of being able to do scoring and treatment or quality and compliance monitoring. Like those seem like the, again, more back office, less consumer facing, which
Yes.
comes with less
Well,
risk.
I looked at it this way. I think the voice AI, the agent assist is something that agencies don't have the in-house expertise and they must buy it from the marketplace. Whereas I think scoring and quality that you can, with a good account, with a decent sized account on ChatGPT or, your favorite engine, you can build a lot of that in-house. And we are hearing that from some of our customers is that they just create their own ChatGPT product. It might be a piece of software that they vibe coded, and is running on their own systems, or they simply have a process to run it through an open ChatGPT that is cordoned off with just their data. But when you start talking about, agent assist and things that, really need some high level of technology, the connectivity to the back engine and the compute that is required to use those types of products, they're going out to the marketplace. And I will say the difference between even 6 months ago of our customers talking to today, everybody's on the agent side of things right now. They're all
Mhm.
looking at the various players. 6 months ago, I might have been like, you can hold off to take a look, see how the industry shakes out. Now everybody's sort of really assessing where they're going to spend their dollars in 26.
I think that's a pretty astute observation. For me, it's like the voice AI that's completely autonomous in communicating with a consumer versus the real time agent assist. I'm more comfortable with the agent assist at this point because that human still remains in the loop. And that's not to say that I haven't done some really great demos, but I'm really careful about how I allow a demo to happen. Like if you're just going to play it from me, like if you're just going to play this call from your phone and and show and have me listen to a pre-recorded, I'm not all that impressed because I can make my computer say anything that I want. I have time to manage that. I have a lot more respect for the organizations that will put me on the phone with it and let me have a conversation directly with the bot
Hmm.
itself. That's always a case, but especially when it comes to the voice stuff, I always ask the first same two questions of every organization that pitches me on voice AI. Who's your lawyer and who's running compliance? Those are always my first two questions because I want to know a lot of these organizations are coming into the United States. They're operating in debt collection for the first time. And
Yes.
let's be perfectly frank, it's one of the most regulated industries on the face of this earth, in one of the most regulated economies on the planet. So it's important that we are looking at the underlying tool sets and understanding the privacy implications of all of this because not only if we're taking payments through this channel, we're talking about PCI DSS and from what I've seen, adoption of the conversational AI tools has been the lowest of all the use cases that I've seen so far, at least from the survey results that I've seen from 24 and 25 for the TransUnion Debt Collection Industry Survey. So and I want to say it maxed out around, of those that deployed it, that was only representing roughly between 1 and 20% of total collections. So nobody seems to have necessarily cracked the nut at scale to be able to deploy a
No,
tool
but
like that.
I think the next survey is going to be entirely different. I think that, if chatter inbound to us, security assessments that are sent to us to provide on behalf of our customers is any indication, this has gone from, it was exploratory, and now all of, that's a bold statement. Not maybe not all, but most of our customers are being asked by their customers, the banks, what are you doing? I want to know what your strategy is. It used like, so a year ago, the questions were like, we're not really sure. I want to see what you guys are thinking about it and look for like risk.
Mhm.
They were looking for more risk. Now they're looking at their vendors to be bringing to them awesome AI solutions and better operational metrics that they can get better results from their agencies and have them competing against each other. So my recommendation to not only our customers but everybody in the business is, if you're not checking these things out, you need to be doing it right now, because I guarantee you your competitors are right now. So I I think the debt collection industry is conservative. I mean, I lived through the whole
Very.
text and I worked for a company, the first ones to do text messaging in collections. And it literally has taken a decade to get to there. That is not happening in AI. That is it is accelerating I think as fast as it possibly can right now. As fast as this industry is able to absorb it. I don't see any regulatory roadblocks. Everybody's like, how can we use this? How can we go and keep moving it? I mean, I'm not,
So we just
I'm just,
saw it yesterday. Trump is expected to sign an executive order in short order here to establish a federal guideline for artificial intelligence to preempt all of the efforts of the states, which I think is one of the smartest things we can do as a nation. Because if we end up with a patchwork of states passing rules on things that they don't understand, we're going to create an anti competitive environment for the United States on a global scale.
yeah, yes, I think everybody's looking at those regulatory headwinds and saying, this is different. This feels different. This looks different. Yeah. And if that is successful in impeding the states from getting involved, then that'll be radically different from then all the other technologies that have we've been using over the last decade,
Well, privacy has been
including,
the issue in the past, right? We have these privacy issues. We have privacy rules that are coming up in all these different states, and it's almost impossible to comply with all of them simultaneously. And we're spending more time and money on managing bureaucracy than actually innovating, building technology to drive our businesses. So hopefully, within that framework, we can suck in some of this privacy and establish that, because I think some of the rules that get passed by states are passed by individuals that don't have an understanding of what they're talking. And if they
yeah,
don't have
and
an understanding of the underlying technology, how are they gonna be the ones to set the
correct.
rules?
Correct. And then, I think, because of all that regulatory infrastructure that we've all had to endure over the last 10, 15 years, you've already, everything's kind of gotten settled, in my opinion, like all the, there's no new sort of thing. Applying of AI sort of fits in with everything else, right? It's not like SMS, like a new channel or something like that. It doesn't. Yes, is it revolutionary? Is it gonna, it's an amazing technology. Is it extremely different? But, it still operates within all the parameters that we have. We still take payments through the credit card system. We still have websites that will drive debtors to make those payments, or we'll take them over the phone. So like, it's from that perspective, it's, the regulatory framework around it is not that big a difference. This is about operational efficiency at the agencies and the debt buyers and all those types of things where it becomes extremely valuable. And those are the conversations that I'm having with our customers. They're like, hey, I want to integrate this new AI tool into Latitude right now, like now, not
Like yesterday.
like now.
But having a system built on open API is what makes that possible, right? Like you've already given them the rails by which to do it. And you bring up something interesting, that things are remaining the same when it comes to the payment technology, right? Like credit card is the number one, and how that starts to function. What I find to be interesting about that is I'm recording this episode. I'm sitting here in Campo Grande, Brazil. And what I've learned in the last couple of months here is like they have a payment system that's built into their banks. It's called Pix. It's similar to the UPI platform that's used in India, where if I want to go buy a coconut water down the street, I pull up my phone, I scan the QR code, I pay the guy, right? So that platform exceeded credit card transactions in this country this year. So that platform has done significantly more in terms of payment volume and number of transactions than credit cards have done within the borders of this country. The same thing is getting close in India. So I'm starting to say, like, when we start looking at artificial intelligence, how many other things are going to start to get disrupted? Is it going to be MasterCard, Visa, and American Express in charge of all the payments in the future? Or are we going to start to see these other opportunities bubble to the surface so that we can engage with consumers in new and interesting ways? I don't know if that means crypto or whatever, because I feel like that's got a much longer adoption curve. But I think it's interesting to start thinking about some of these things. And, we didn't really think about wearable technology 5 years ago. Now everybody's got meta glasses. Like the world has just changed for us. And I'm wondering how the application of that technology, because we weren't texting 20 years ago, right? Like texting took time, it took smartphones, right? The 2007 rollout of the iPhone kind of changed things. I mean, you could argue the BlackBerry was already on that, but that's a little bit of a.
I think it's important that for all these software companies that are building the AI tools is they're caught in sort of a different sort of situation. They need to hype AI as the coolest new amazing technology. You need those guys, the owner or the guys who run the various AI companies, the guy who runs ChatGPT, his name escapes me at the moment, but they need to be evangelists and they need to be evangelists and sort of hyping that this is cool, this is the new technology because Wall Street needs it and all those types of things. But getting back into it, if you look at AI in a small business or any size business, it's not doing anything. It's adding efficiency when it comes to humans. And this is the negative thing about it. But somebody asked me, my dad, me to explain AI because he's old and he doesn't understand any of it. I said, he's like, so it's like can think, and it's like, well, it can't really think yet or anything like that. But if I had to describe it, Dad, it's like we have an intern at the company who's like right in the middle of his business school. He's on the summer break and he's interning for us. He's incredibly smart. He's incredibly energetic. He's always asking what he can do for you and that type of thing. But he doesn't have a lot of seasoning yet. And that's sort of how I describe,
That's a great explanation. Now I have realized that
Yes.
Perplexity gives me a lot less hallucinations and accurate links for research and is better at language translation. And then I use Claude for other things. But if you have the paid version of Gemini, Claude, ChatGPT, and Perplexity, and you ask each of them, and you say, I have all four of you, I have access to the highest level of all of your models. How should I use you together? It will give you, all of the models seem to know where they fit within the ecosystem of leveraging them for business purposes, which I thought was interesting because I all expected them each to be like, I'm the best. ChatGPT was the most confident. The other ones were clearly ready to defer and say that there's a better way than just using me. You can use me in conjunction with these other things, and Perplexity for research, and then organize the ideas in ChatGPT,
So you have
refine
accounts
the
on all four?
language. Oh, absolutely. Chris,
Yeah.
I carry a secondary phone. This is my AI device. I only use it for that's its entire purpose in life is to use all of the different AI tools with each other so that I can start playing with them. My wife and I went to Argentina for Thanksgiving, and I don't know anything about Argentinian wine. Now I know a lot about Argentinian wine. I built a model. I figured out how to take pictures of a wine list and have it select based on my taste profiles, and really just started getting into playing with it. I wrote a storybook for my daughter using one model and then illustrated it using Gemini because Nano Banana just got integrated into all of the Adobe tools. So I think that one's better for, graphic and refinement. And, Claude is better for coding and final refinement of ideas. But I think each one of them has a place to play. But bringing it back to the debt collection space specifically, as I went through, I used some AI models as I analyzed all the data from the surveys, all the data that I had for the last couple of years before I wrote the 2025 report. And what I thought was interesting was how each company type is leveraging artificial intelligence to match their own business models. So I've got a couple here that I wanted to just kind of organize in my head here real quick and talk to you about because I think there's some interesting approaches here. So debt buyers, for example, are focused on analytic scoring models and liquidation forecasting. So they fall into really to one to two of the use cases when we start breaking it down from the six. But what I thought was really interesting is that debt buyers were the most likely to want to build AI in-house. And I think it's because they look at it as a competitive advantage and they don't necessarily want to just buy something out of the box. Because if 10 debt buyers are using the same analytical and scoring tool and they're coming to the same bid, they have no competitive advantage. So I think from the debt buyer's point of view, the ability to score and understand and predict the liquidation forecasting allows them to set pricing. And that's where they look at artificial intelligence as an opportunity to create a competitive advantage.
Yeah, I would be hard pressed to find to buy that on the open marketplace. Even though if a vendor came to me and showed me some really great results, I don't think that I don't think there's a great advantage. I think that's something that you can build in house if you have that. Maybe you're not technically savvy with in house, but I think you can find somebody to get to you there. So if you were buying that sort of operational intelligence from a vendor on a subscription basis, I about a year from now, you might say, am I really getting the value out of this that I couldn't just get myself on? So those are the things that, that's build versus buy. I mean, sell software. I'm typically a buy guy, but I think some things you can build in house with these tools. And so it just takes a slight leap of faith to sort of give it a whirl and assess, all right, I just got a portfolio in. Let's run it through, what I think is the right system, and let's compare it to the tools that I've used in the past. I think you're going to get to that and exceed that rapidly. So yeah, that would not be an area that I would recommend, to any agency owner as a buy right off the bat. I think that's something you can build.
I think that's a hyper focus to the debt buyer situation. And if you look at the earliest companies that came to the debt collection marketplace, I want to say some as far back as 10 years ago, who were talking about the deployment of artificial intelligence, this is where they were deploying it. But I don't see any of those companies anymore. Toonly and there were some others that were
Yeah.
selling similar scoring
Yes.
mechanisms that
They're
I
not.
haven't seen them
They're
in
not
a long
around.
time. Yeah, I don't
Yeah.
think they're still in business, but I think that kind of points out that it really is one of those things that's proprietary. Now, as we move on to the debt collection agencies, right, which is more of a customer experience type of business model and organization, the emphasis is on digital communications and QA automation. So being able to understand the quality assurance and be able to do that at scale. There was a time where we listened to 5% of the calls. Now,
Correct.
the AI can listen to 100%, and the same people that we had employed previously are now able to focus on the 5% exceptions that actually need to be reviewed by a human. But now it's become the use of artificial intelligence for exception management. We haven't gotten rid of any people. We've now been
Yep.
able to identify more of that. And if anything, we've probably invested in more people if we found a higher level of exceptions, especially earlier in those deployments as we're refining the models for the purpose.
Yeah. I wonder. I guess I question whether or not actually people are even doing 100% of the calls. They may have tried it for a little bit, but they're scaling back and going back to the 5%. I think that's operationally where a lot of where our potential customers may be. Even though you can do 100%, depending on
From an
I mean,
AI perspective, you don't think they're listening to
yeah,
100%?
no, I don't. I don't.
Interesting.
Yeah. No. And we've seen those sort of leaps over the years where technology came in and said, well, we can do a QA and we can look at those types of things. And what happens is you see, and this is less collections, but more on my old Genesis side, on the contact center side of things. We would tout, yeah, you can do 100%, or you could, double or triple or quadruple the amount of QA that they're doing. From a statistical standpoint, it was, not beneficial to do more, but you were using keyword tools and things like that, listening in real time to and flagging calls, flagging interactions. And so that was a sort of a different model. I don't see people doing 100% of the calls unless they're their end customers asking for them, but I haven't seen that either. So I'm dubious that is it a use case? Yes. Is it where money is being spent and being made by providers? Not really. I don't think so. If I was starting an AI company, that is not where I would.
Not where you would focus your time. Okay, I respect that. Makes sense.
Yeah.
But third-party collection agencies also had the broadest deployment of virtual negotiators and SMS workflows. So it seemed
Yes.
like that was where they were investing in those communications. Now, to me, when I think about the virtual negotiator and I think about the SMS workflows or email workflows, it brings me back to the general idea of self-service. I think the consumers are looking for self-service opportunities. They
Yes.
want to self-serve.
Absolutely.
They don't want to talk to anybody. They want to keep it simple. But the virtual negotiators, and we can get really good at sending text messages, but we better have a really good frictionless portal, or the text
Hmm.
messages don't add significant value or the ability to convert. It's like being able to run great social media ads, and you sell me on this product on Instagram. I'm ready to buy it. I click it. Your website looks like it's from 1990, and I'm not putting.
Yeah. Yeah. You still need to those are table stakes that still those, you got to consistently improve those types of things. But you're absolutely right. The negotiation that's where I see a lot of value, and where our customers are seeing a lot of value is the negotiation engines are better. They're faster, the customer experience is better. So, you want to make you want to be paid first out of that bucket of money, and you want to make it as frictionless as possible. And you want to use AI to help enable that. And if you're not, and I mean, that's where everybody's spending their time. That's where I'm having conversations with our customers. They're like, hey, I've just demoed a bunch of these different platforms. This is the one I want to integrate to. And I'm like, okay, well, tell me why. Because we're looking at them, we're all kind of impressed with them, but we're making different value judgments on who we want to spend time investing in. And they're like, well, this one is doing this and it gives me this operational efficiency of X, Y, and Z. And I'm like, okay, all right, that's great. I would rather spend time and money integrating what my customers want than what I think my customers need. So when somebody comes into me with real data that's saying this one is the right one, Chris, it makes sense for me. And then therefore I think it makes sense for you guys too.
Here's the challenge with the right one. That's where I
Hmm.
really struggle right now, because 12 months ago, ChatGPT was the right one. And then Perplexity got better, and like that became the right one around June. And I started going, oh my God, I've been using the wrong thing for 6 months. And then Gemini pops out of nowhere and breaks every benchmark across all of them on pretty much every front. And so that
Yeah.
constant changing, I feel like the AI race has just begun, and it's hard for us to predict. But I think looking at it the way that you're looking at it, I think is the best way that we can look at it. But I think it's a constant evaluation process of what's the best one today.
Well, I'm looking at I look at these small vendors that are the startups that are coming to all of our customers and our friends that we see at that we hang out with at the shows and
Yeah,
stuff.
sure.
And these are all, you and I were up in Vermont a few months back, and there was a vendor there that just decided hadn't been at a show before, thinking debt collection was where she wanted to go. She was just, she was shaking hands and making moves and things like that. But she, there, you still need to meet the criteria of this industry as a vendor, which means you can't be fly by night. You have to come in and invest. You have to show that you have staying power. You have to show that you can if you don't have experience in collections, but you're willing to learn, and you have people on staff who've been in collections for a while. Those are all still important, regardless of the technology. And you can't come in and carpet bag this business. You've got to spend and invest and be there for the years. So, getting back to your point, the underlying big engines and how these small startups use those engines. Are they building their own engine? I don't know if that's a good use of money.
So that comes down to the size of the organization, right? Like I talked to EXL, Mike Walsh and their team they have their own models, they have their own stuff from the ground up, but it's a $3 or $4 billion company. And then for
Yeah,
a startup to come in and try and build a model from the ground up, and I think it's also about the commitment, because you brought up a really good point that there's, a lot of exploratory conversations, people coming in making grandiose statements. At
yeah,
ACA this year in Louisville, I met a group who was gung ho. We're going to be the voice company for debt collection. Was it 2 months later at the DCS conference? They're like, well, we're not so sure that we want to do voice. We might want to build a system of record, or we might want to do this, or we might want to do that.
So you're absolutely, and that was our advice 6 to 9 months ago. Is let's see how these shake out. We don't want to spend a lot of limited time on integrating one of these new startups to Latitude unless they show some staying power, some effective sales. So we're judging these vendors not so much on their technology and their capabilities, but what does their balance sheet look like? Who's invested behind them? What is
The
their
money
company?
in.
Are you going to be here in 6 months? Because we just spoke a little bit ago, a lot of those guys they didn't last. They didn't. Now I get it. The pressure on these new vendors is immense. They need to show wins to their investors as quickly as possible. So we have to figure out those value jumps. So when a new vendor comes to us and says, hey, I'd like to integrate. And by the way, there's no way we can handle all the companies that want to integrate to Latitude. It's just too many. But we're not just evaluating technology; we're evaluating those other things, the business side of things. Are you going to be here? Because we have to make smart bets along those lines.
I think you guys are looking at it the right way.
Yeah.
No, I think I think this is exactly on topic, because when we start talking about how the different companies are using it, I think that's kind of part of the conversation, is what does that criteria look like and why are they making some of these decisions? Because when we talk about law firms, for example, law firms are prioritizing compliance, documentation integrity, and scalable review. So they're using it for operational efficiency. They're trying to leverage it from a doc prep standpoint. Like, I think they're taking some of the things that they've used BPOs for in trying to apply some technology, and having the BPO staff manage the exceptions from the process from an AI perspective.
Great
So
use. Great use. Yeah.
feels like
That
that's a
sort of
different
like
animal.
I agree, and I like those types of, so to speak, rudimentary. You're using AI to
Fundamentals.
do stuff that you used to have a person do, and you can retask that person to do much higher value stuff. Lay that off on AI engine and let it go. If it's not 100% of what you used to get now, and it's only at 80%, you're still way ahead of the game. And by the way, it'll probably be at 100% 3 months from now. I mean, we've talked about the improvements. If you're listening to this and you haven't played around with, at the various engines like the ChatGPT, the difference between ChatGPT 6 months ago and the 5.1 release is night and day. It was frustrating as hell to use the old version of ChatGPT
3.0
because
was very frustrating.
Yeah, and by the way, I don't blame anybody who was trying it back out maybe even 2 years ago and going, "Is this" I don't know, but it is remarkably different experience, and I expect it to be a remarkably different experience 6 months from now, version X, version Y, version Z coming out. So, yeah,
A big part of that is the context window. How many tokens
yes.
can it understand within the context window? And I think that's where the larger the context window, the more valuable it becomes for larger projects. Like, 3.0, you could use it to rephrase an email, like you could use it for some basic things. But as the context window expands, the capability of understanding a particular task and accomplishing that task at a high level, I think increases. Now, when it comes to law firms, what I thought was interesting is they're the most cautious adopters of AI. So they're kind of the slowest on the curve of adopting. And they also seem to be the least happy with the overall investment. Meaning, if we ask them, does your AI investment meet your expectations? Is it falling a little bit behind? I think the law firms are the least likely to be optimistic about it. And maybe that's just the legal profession, or maybe that is, because of the use cases that they're specifically deploying within their organizations, or the IT resources that they have to support this type of operation.
It's interesting you say that about the law firms because I'll talk a little bit about my former employer, Genesis. I think where one of the business units within Genesis that saw a lot of operational benefit was in the legal side of things, contracts and things like that. So my question to the law firms might be, you may not be experiencing on sort of from the front end on the customers, or I mean, the debtor side of things, but are you using it operationally for other things? Or if you're not, I would
I
be,
think that's the case. They're doing less in terms of consumer communication, more in terms of back office, more in terms of
yeah,
documentation management.
okay.
But overall,
Yeah.
they're slower to adopt than other organizations, because when you compare it to creditors,
It can-
creditors were slower to adopt in the first couple of years in which I had the survey data, but
Yes.
now they're relying heavily. Right, banks are not looking at it from that perspective, and I mean, we had the webinar recently where we were talking with Arbus Bank and how they're making their technology
Yes.
driven decisions, which I think is a great window for anybody who is in debt collection and is interested in understanding how the banks are viewing technology. That might be my favorite conversation of 2025 to date.
It was. And it was so different from, the talking to banks back in 2005. It was such God, it was so depressing trying to say, okay, SMS, people love it. They want to get reminders, and they're like, I don't know. And it just, year after year, just trying to, flying down to, these these areas and
Yeah, physically
demoing it
having
and
to
never,
go there.
yeah, it's just like, come on, guys. But it's totally different now, I think. I mean, I see the law firm, yeah, they're lawyers. They know, they understand the risks, and they've been through it, right? If they've been in the business for a while, they've been through it. So I don't blame them for being more cautious, but I'm going to keep, maybe you have other subjects who don't feel this way. I just don't see it. I just do not see the fear, uh, that we used to see. I just
I think
don't
it's
see it.
lessened, but from a
Yeah.
creditor standpoint, I don't think it's a fear. I think they're just getting hyper focused on what I would call enterprise approved third party AI solutions. The creditors are looking for something that has already been proven in the marketplace, they know is going to work, and their focal points in terms of deployments, like in terms of use cases, has been QA, really customer experience. So chat and written communication, and I think they're exploring voice very hard, but also that omni-channel orchestration, because they've got so much data going back to the origination of the account. They understand the consumer better than anybody in third party collections, because we don't see all of that data. I don't think all of that intelligence is being transferred to us when an account goes charge off. So the banks and the originating creditors, I think, just have a better visibility into how this consumer is going to act, which gives them more capability from an omni-channel orchestration perspective.
Yeah. At the end of the day, are they doing anything fundamentally different on the collection? When you get right down to it, collecting of debt, you send a dunning letter, you do this, you do this, the steps, the workflows that you take. Are you doing anything fundamentally different if you are an early AI adopter or a heavy AI adopter? No, you're not really doing anything fundamentally. You're using it to tune it and improve it. And you're having operational, you're retasking people. Maybe you're not replacing some headcount on a natural attrition. You're replicating your best agents across this, new use of technology. But are you doing anything super fundamentally different that would raise regulatory flags or anything like that? No. Adam, there was something that's being asked of me lately that I wanted to ask you, and I wanted to know if you're hearing about it, and then maybe anybody who's listening. One of the things that is being asked of me is, from a technological standpoint, is redundancy within using these AI tools like an agent assist. Excuse me, not redundancy. I used the wrong word. Latency. Um, does this new AI assist have the speed, the compute to provide a good customer experience? Or is it I think we've all been, it's sort of like doing an international call where you sort of talk over each other and the latency becomes a problem.
Like we're doing an international call right now.
Yes, exactly. But we ran into that back in the day in the old dialer where it's like, could you do the automated voice? Could it listen to the text to speech and then play the right audio prompt?
So
This is very
interesting.
similar.
Interesting
Yeah.
question. I actually wrote an article about this not that long ago. You can find it on my LinkedIn profile where I specifically talk about AI latency from this perspective. Here's what I've learned recently in conversations with these groups and in testing is that there was a time where it was, and it still is, but I think we're getting to the cusp now, especially as we go to these larger context windows. There was a time where it was speech to text to the model, back to speech, or I'm sorry, back to text and then back to speech. So you had all of these steps in the process, but AI is getting to the point to where it's speech models speech, and we don't necessarily have to go through that transfer process. So if we're not already there, we're within 6 months of speech to speech going into the model, and I think that changes everything. I don't believe that right now in the high end systems, the enterprise level systems, that there's enough latency to be noticed. I think things are
I agree.
happening so fast. Now, on the flip side of that, if you're using artificial intelligence for like language translation, I think it's a little bit different. And I'll use the example. I've got Apple AirPod version 3. I've got the latest Google Pixel Buds, and I've got the Meta glasses. I'm down here in Brazil. I don't speak fluent Portuguese, and none of these are useful for me. Portuguese happens too fast. I have every latest and greatest tool available. None of them are worth the wait. They're all paperweights.
You've tried to have
I try
conversations.
them every day.
Is
I
it,
try to understand my
late?
mother-in-law. It's like I got nothing. No, the language goes too fast and it can't pick up on all of it. And so the translations that I get back are garbled ridiculousness, and they're not saying the same thing. Right? Like I
And
was trying to we were having a
is the
conversation at dinner
latency
the other
also
night.
bad? Well,
So it's a
the
little bit
translation's
latent.
bad, but it's the latency bad. Yeah.
A little bit. I mean, again, literally the latest and greatest Samsung Galaxy Fold 7. This is the best chip on the marketplace for this type of technology at best.
Yeah.
Even if I use it directly from the device.
Okay. So the question is that latency caused by, or is that
I think it's a problem with the speech. I think
It's
Portuguese
speech.
happens
Okay.
so fast that the microphones can't pick it up and can't understand it fast enough to
Okay.
respond to it. And it does take time for the latency depending on the internet connection because it's
Yeah.
not doing all of that translation natively on any
Got it.
given device. Even though they're all
All right.
touting
So
it, right? Like Apple, when they release the AirPods, the Google Pixel Buds, it's on every ad I get on Instagram, but none of them are meeting the expectation of actual use.
So so let's talk about the next use case. So let's say you have a contact center platform. You can go as high as 200 concurrent conversations because you have 200. Let's say you have 200 agents. You're waiting for you're instructing your agents to use the agent assist. So they're not actually, AI is not doing the conversation. And you are communicating via APIs to your vendor who is listening in real time and providing the guidance back to the agent. The latency between that, I mean, I think what you said before was accurate.
That seems to be smoother.
Yeah, the big platforms, if you're using the native app within the big platforms and they're hosted on a hyperscaler and they have the compute capability, it's not so much of an issue. But getting back to the small vendors, they don't have the money to buy the compute power to make this happen. So you can get a demo of this, and they might have cracked the code on a better customer experience, but if they don't have the compute power to run it, and you're introducing latency, that's where I wonder if you're hearing anything out there about that, because that's what's being asked of me.
I think that you are spot on. And honestly, I think you're spot on. I think it comes down to the level of compute power, what kind of investment. If you look at the cost of NVIDIA chips and all of the hardware equipment that's necessary to support these types of things, if they're not built on a pre-existing model, they're either borrowing the compute power from an AWS, from a ChatGPT, or whatever their flavor is. But I think that's where we have that disconnect right now. And Chris, I think this has been a perfect conversation. I mean, we've covered so much
You're
information
done?
as it relates to all of the AI use cases that are specific to debt collection, how they're being used. For those that want to learn more and see the stats behind some of the that drove our conversation today, the TransUnion Debt Collection Industry Report for 2025 will be released at the RMAI annual conference in February, right before the
That report.
keynote. TransUnion's going to release it. I highly suggest, even if you're not at the conference, download the report, read through some of the statistics, because we do break it down based on company type. We break it down based on company size and how those investments are having an impact, how organizations feel about their AI investments, and just so much information as it relates to artificial intelligence. But Chris, thank you so much for coming on today, sharing your insights with me. I always enjoy our conversations.
Same here. Thank you very much for having me, and I'm looking forward to that TransUnion report. I always love watching the changes over time on those graphs. It's great.
This year, you're going to see even more in terms. I got more data this year because this is my second and going into my third year of conducting the report. So I think we're going to get better and better at kind of some of this trending information. But for those of you that are watching, if you have additional questions you'd like to ask Chris or myself, you can leave those in the comments here on LinkedIn and YouTube, and we'll be responding to those. Or if you have additional topics you'd like to see us discuss, you can leave those in the comments below as well. And I bet you I can get Chris back here at least one more time to help me continue to create great content for a great industry. But until next time, Chris, thank you so much for your insights. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, guys.
And thank you, everybody, for watching. We appreciate your time and attention. We'll see you all again soon. Bye.